Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manifested e-learning platform. The subject is public finance and taxation. We are moving to a new chapter known as Administration of Income Tax and Tax Procedures. Administration of Income Tax and Tax Procedures has 9 sub-chapters, namely 1. Registration and deregistration of taxpayers. 2. Personal identification number. 3. Taxpayers tax representative. 4. Tax returns and assessments. 5. Collection, recovery, and refund of taxes. 6. Tax deductions, objections, appeals, and reliefs of mistakes. 7. Voluntary tax disclosure program. 8. Administrative penalties and offenses. And lastly, application of ICT in taxation. We'll be taking one subtopic at a time. Today we begin the income tax administration, registration, and deregistration. Income tax administration, that is 1. Registration, that is 2. The number 3, deregistration. We're going to briefly discuss these aspects of administration of income tax and procedures. And candidates, the administration of income tax. The administration of income tax. Administration of income tax. The income tax administration or administration of income tax in Kenya is governed by the Kenya Revenue Authority. The administration of income tax and tax procedures in Kenya is primarily governed by the KRA, the principal agency responsible for assessment, collection, and accounting of all revenues for the government. And the legal framework underpinning this includes the Income Tax Act, Income Tax Act, and the Tax Procedures Act. The Tax Procedures Act. These are very key pieces of legislation that govern the administration of income tax in Kenya. All right? So the legal framework underpinning the administration of income tax in Kenya, number 1 is the Income Tax, Chapter 470, and the Tax Procedures Act of 2015. The income tax deals with the imposition and collection of income tax. The Income Tax Act deals with the imposition and the collection and accounting of income tax in Kenya, whereas the Tax Procedures Act harmonizes and consolidates procedural rules across various tax laws, ensuring consistency and efficiency in the tax administration. And as we shall be learning later, Kenya operates on what we call self-assessment system, where taxpayers are required to declare their income, they are required to calculate their tax liability, and to file their returns accordingly. KRA is only mandated to facilitate compliance, to enforce the tax laws, and resolve any tax disputes, which includes managing the registration and deregistration. Managing the registration and deregistration, which moves me to the next point, which is registration, which is under the purview of the Kenya Revenue Authority, registration of taxpayers. Now, Taxpayer registration in Kenya involves obtaining, first of all, the personal identification number. It involves obtaining the personal identification number, the PIN. That's the first step, which is a personal identification number from KRA. And the KRA PIN is a unique 11-character alphanumeric identifier, which is issued to individuals and entities. Issued to individuals and entities. The PIN is issued to individuals. It may also be issued to entities. And according to the Tax Procedures Act, a person who has accrued or expects to accrue a tax liability under the income tax or the value added tax, or even a person who expects to manufacture or import or supply exercisable goods or services is required to apply for registration of the personal identification number with KRA. So if one needs to accrue, if one is in the process of accruing a tax liability, if you are likely to accrue a tax liability under the income tax or the value added tax, or if one expects to manufacture or to import goods or services or to supply exercisable goods or services, then one is required to apply for registration of the KRA PIN. And in practice, the KRA PIN is mandatory for a wide range of transactions, including employment. If one is to get into employment, you must have the KRA PIN. Or opening bank account. If you would want to open a bank account, you must have the KRA PIN. Another use is registering business names and companies. Number 4 is transferring and registering motor vehicles. If one wants to register a motor vehicle or to transfer motor vehicle, then one has to have a KRA PIN. There is also the registration of land titles and stamping instruments. You must have a KRA PIN for you to be able to do that. Then there is also approval of development plans. Development plans cannot be approved by the government without having a KRA PIN. Another use is underwriting insurance policies and also registration for VAT or turnover tax. So KRA PIN may also be useful in carrying out business over the internet or digital marketplace. So that is in practice what the range of transactions that are cannot be carried out without one having KRA PIN. KRA PIN. Okay, so we are discussing registration, and before registration, is important for you to understand who needs to register. I've said the individuals or entities that need to register are those who expect to accrue or to those who expect to accrue a tax liability under the Income Tax Act or the Value Added Tax, or individuals who expect or entities who expect to manufacture or import or supply exercisable goods or services. The requirement for KRA PIN for such transactions is mandatory. You understand, candidates? And the KRA registration process is done via the KRA portal under the iTax portal. Registration is done under the iTax portal. You go to the iTax portal, the KRA iTax portal. That is where the registration process is primarily conducted online through the KRA's iTax portal. And for individuals, we have registration which can be done for individuals. We have individuals, the resident and non-resident. For the resident individuals and non-resident individuals to register for KRA PIN, all that is needed is to visit the KRA iTax portal. You select the new PIN registration option. You choose individual as the taxpayer type. Then you select online form as the mode of registration. After that, one needs to fill in the required details in section A, which requires basic information. Section A of that form requires you to fill in just basic information. Then there is section B, which requires one to fill in what we call obligation details. For example, if the income tax resident and so on. Then section C, one is required to fill in the source of income details. Then after that, still on the iTax portal, you enter the correct answers to the arithmetic sum for verification. Then just submit the form. After submitting the form, an acknowledgement receipt will be generated, and the PIN certificate will typically be sent to the registered email address. So that is done under the KRA iTax portal. And the requirements for individual registration is just the for residents requirements. Let's put down the requirements. Requirements for individual residents. One is the ID, identification card. Okay, it's very important to have the national identification card details, and if employed, the employer's PIN details. If in business, you may require the business registration certificate, and so on. For the non-resident employees reside in Kenya, one may require to have the original valid passport. This is for non-residents who are employed in Kenya. One requires to have an original valid passport. Number two is the valid work permit or special pass that is endorsed in the passport with the employer's name. One may also need to have a letter of introduction from the employer and also the employer's PIN details. Those are the details that are required for the individuals who are non-residents. For non-resident investors reside in Kenya, the requirements would be the original valid passport, documentary proof of investment, which could be certificate of incorporation, CR12. One may require project proposal, a letter of introduction by tax representative, and their PIN tax compliance certificates. Still, if you check on the iTax portal, you may find other categories of people who may be registered, and there could be specific requirements that exist for diplomats, for refugees, for students, for spouses of Kenya citizens, or residents, and others. So you see, there are all this will involve passports, will involve relevant permits, and all that. So that is registration process candidates for non-resident investors reside in Kenya. But you may have non-individuals. Of course, here we are talking about individuals. There is also registration for non-individuals. Non-individuals are just companies, like companies, businesses, partnerships, trusts, and so on. These are non-individuals who may also seek to register PIN numbers with KRA. Now, for non-individuals, one has to visit the KRA iTax portal. You select new PIN registration, choose non-individual as the taxpayer type. You select online form or upload forms. All right, you select online form or you select upload form. Then fill in the online form appropriately, providing details such as the entity's name, registration details, the business type, the contact information, and so on. After that, you select the tax obligations like the income tax resident, the pay as you earn, the VAT, turnover tax, based on the nature of the entity's activities. After that, you enter the details of the company's directors, the partners or trustees, including the KRA pins and national IDs. While doing that, you need to ensure that the directors or partners or trustees are tax compliant on iTax. After which, you upload the relevant supporting documents. Then you enter the correct answer to the arithmetic sum. After that, submit the online application. Then the portal will acknowledge the receipt. An acknowledgement receipt will then be generated, and the PIN certificate will typically be sent to the registered email address. That is the process for registering non-individuals on the iTax KRA portal, KRA iTax portal. That is registration. We've discussed registration of individuals and non-individuals. It is done at the KRA portal. KRA registration process is carried out via the portal. The registration is primarily conducted online through the KRA iTax portal. The same applies for deregistration. 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 To deregister. Now, deregistration or cancellation of PIN or tax obligation is the process by which the taxpayer ceases to be registered for tax purposes or for specific tax obligations with the Kenya Revenue Authority. And this is permissible under certain circumstances. That is to say, there has to be reasons for deregistration or cancellation. And deregistration may be requested for valid reasons. One may request for deregistration for valid reasons, such as cessation of business activities. Reasons: if one had registered a business, you recall we said that you cannot do business without a KRA PIN. And that means that if you cease to do business, then you can request for the deregistration of the PIN. So that is one valid reason. Cessation of business activities for companies, for partnerships, and even business names. You have also death of an individual. Registration may be valid if an individual dies. The death of individual taxpayer can be also a reason for deregistration. Another reason is when an individual taxpayer ceases to earn taxable income, stops to earn taxable. If one ceases to earn taxable income, that is yet another reason. When an individual taxpayer ceases to earn taxable income and has no future tax obligations, that can be a valid reason for deregistration. Another reason is liquidation or winding up. companies. This is just the death of a company. This was the death of individual. Death of a company can also be a reason for deregistration of PIN for companies. Liquidation or winding up of a company. Change in legal status is another reason. Change in legal status. Change in legal status that results in no tax liability. All right. Another reason is where a taxpayer was registered for a specific tax obligation like VAT, but no longer meets the threshold or requirement, for the specific tax obligation. So that's it, candidates, for the Income Tax Administration, registration and deregistration. That was our first lesson under the topic Administration of Income Tax and Procedures. That is our new topic. This was just an introductory lesson, and we've noted that the administration of income tax and tax procedures in Kenya is primarily governed by the Kenya Revenue Authority, which is the principal agency responsible for assessment, collection, and accounting of all revenues for the government. And we did also note that the legal framework underpinning this includes the Income Tax Act, which deals with the imposition and collection of income tax. Another piece of legislation is the Tax Procedures Act, which harmonizes and consolidates procedural rules across various tax laws, ensuring consistency and efficiency in tax administration. We also noted that Kenya operates on a self-assessment system where taxpayers are required to declare the income, to calculate their tax liability, and file their returns accordingly. And KRA is mandated to facilitate compliance, to enforce tax laws, and resolve any tax disputes. We've gone ahead in this lesson to describe the registration of taxpayers in Kenya, which we did note that it begins with the issuance of the personal identification number, which can be issued to individuals or non-individuals. We noted that the registration process is conducted primarily online through the KRA iTax portal. The KRA iTax portal is a simple process where you visit the iTax portal and select new registration process. You provide all the details that are required, you fill in the form, then at the end of the process, a certificate is sent to your email address. We've gone ahead to describe the deregistration process in Kenya. We've said that deregistration or cancellation of PIN or tax obligation is a process by which a taxpayer ceases to be registered for tax purposes or for specific tax obligations with the Kenya Revenue Authority. And that can only be permissible under certain circumstances, what we are calling the reasons. The first reason for the registration is cessation of business activities for companies, businesses, and also partnerships and business names. Another reason for deregistration could be the death of an individual taxpayer. Number 3, where one stops to earn taxable income, or when an individual taxpayer ceases to earn taxable income and has no future tax obligations. Number 4 is liquidation or winding up of companies. Number 5, we've noted change in legal status. Change in legal status that results in no tax liability. Then lastly, we did mention where a taxpayer has registered for a specific tax obligation like VAT, but no longer meets the threshold or requirements. So that is the end of our today's lesson. In our next session, we continue to share knowledge in administration of income tax and procedures. Bye. Bye-bye.